Okay.
Good to see you.
Do you know if he's planning on turning off the fan?
He is. Roberto was gonna leave here and go do that.
Roberto. Is Adolfo okay? Adolfo?
He's on a leave of absence. I don't know, like, he hasn't said he wants to join virtually. He could come in person, but I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know what his plan is. I can text message him.
I'll follow up. I'll follow up with him.
Yeah? Okay.
Just check in.
I wonder if we should
Hmm?
turn off the notification sounds. That was something that we did.
Yeah. Where is that? I don't even know where to do that.
Yeah, it must be like the system stuff. Okay. There you go.
Then just open it. You know where it is.
That's great. I like that hair. That's good. Like top of the hour.
I'm just in my it's like when
That's cute.
That's it.
Easy peasy.
Speaking of. You might get a phone call from OSCR about improvements. Blah, blah, blah. We have that phone call? No? It's this afternoon. There are sessions that they want us to go through, or they're suggesting we attend.
Oh.
Regularly talk
It's
about
funny because I put special meetings and I think the good food.
yeah, you did. Even in the invite.
It's because I did a copy paste over it with.
When did you turn out to you?
Yeah. I keep doing it. Send first round this year and then the second round. Well, see this. I'm making
Looking forward to you.
this is the form.
All right.
Hi, how are you? Good. Sorry, I'm like, oh, you're fine. You're actually a couple months early, but go ahead and take a seat. This is Adrian. Adrian is the
What's up, Adrian?
student rep starting July 1st.
All eyes on you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not a great one to start with, but we're excited.
We're gonna make it as
Yeah.
entertaining as possible for you.
We do. So there was a 2-person runoff. So Adrian was our winner. You ready? All right, awesome. Hi, Nicole.
But then the funny part is, if Byron and Leah show up, where is it?
Well, there's 2 seats.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, Adolfo? Yeah. No,
What's the big
it could. All right. Keeping that going. Hey, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Matthew Kwame. Welcome to our local school council special budget meeting. I'm Matthew Kwame. Welcome to you all for joining. Before we get going, we're going to go ahead and read our norms. Throughout our meeting, we'll be an active, engaged, contributing participant by sharing our perspective and actively listening to others. Be flexible and respectful of others' time and decisions. Be open to other people's truths and perspectives. Be reminded of differences in cultural and social backgrounds. Transparent about concerns, challenges, and misunderstandings. I'll be reflective, collaborative, and supportive. We'll respect student, staff, and LSC member confidentiality unless there's a threat to safety. Meetings should be paused if LSC members or meeting participants experience harm due to their identity, including but not limited to gender, sexual orientation, race, etc. The harm should be named. We understand that not everything has a right now solution, and we trust that the process is ongoing. With that, we'll do a roll call. So Matthew Kwame, parent rep.
Lori Zaney, principal. Natasha Randall, resident principal. Anna Chilico, teacher rep. Lindsay Moon, parent rep. Adrian Bashi, student representative. Kathleen Hayes, parent rep. Nicole Granacki, parent rep.
Keith Yorkman, parent rep.
Rocky Delia, parent rep.
And I guess just to clarify, Adrian, your official terms are July 1st. We are happy that you are here today.
We are very happy that you're here. As I said, so we have Byron, Blake, and Adolfo from here. So okay, there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, good. First item on the agenda is the approval of the order or the agenda. I'll make a motion to approve the order of the agenda. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you. Items needing council approval. We only have one here. We could have added a few, but we wanted to just kind of keep this one to allow LSC members to join the meeting remotely. Nobody has asked.
Luke just texted me.
Okay.
He is going to join. I'm just going to share with him the YouTube.
Okay.
If you need the Google Meet link, I'll email that to him.
All right. So all in favor? Opposed? So we're gonna
Sorry, actually, I have a quick question about, so we have number 3, number 6, both have items needing council approval. That's two separate.
Yeah, so we did that because of the allowing the people to join remotely.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'd have to vote before the actual
Oh,
discussion. We're gonna go give folks a. Keep going.
Not yet. Hi, Lake.
Hey, like, can you hear us?
All right, I think without further ado, you want to get going, Lori?
Yeah, so we're here to discuss the proposed school year 25 budget. I had shared an initial preview of the budget during our policy meeting 2 weeks ago. Created a whole presentation of the budget, shared that with the school community, and created a Google survey where folks could provide input on it. Looked at the survey data, worked within the budgeting tool, and then created a final proposal, which I emailed to the council earlier this week. And the final proposal, I guess to highlight, I just printed a handful of the slides. I didn't do the entire budget presentation again. But I wanted to highlight that based on the survey data that we received, not everybody provided like an allocation of all funds. So the survey allowed for folks to allocate 2 positions plus what they would do with the $200 and something thousand. Some people did just that, and some people would just pick like what their first priority would be. And so there was a total of 77 responses, with about half of them coming from parents, 46% coming from staff members, and a couple of students responded to the survey. And so in looking at the feedback overall, in knowing that we had core classroom positions covered, but we were facing sort of where do we make decisions on keeping positions, and then where do we decide we're not going to, allocate the remaining funds. So the current budget proposal would maintain 1 full-time intervention teacher, maintain the 9 specials teachers that we currently have for this school year. One of our intervention teachers would become the IB coordinator that I had shared with the council last meeting. We would maintain 2 case managers, with hoping that we will receive, once the contract is negotiated, hoping that we will receive partial or a full second case manager. There's still like a lot to be determined with the contract between CPS and CTU, but we know that our numbers are very large, while also monitoring to see if we qualify for a half case manager position, which could then give us some money back into our budget. And then it would maintain a position of an RP coach. And then it would also allow us to have the option of keeping 4 6th grade classrooms and the reason that I had put tentative in my proposal is because I think that from the staff angle, the struggle is when you're having to like completely shift teaching assignments. From the school angle, it would be really great to have interventions available. And from the student angle and parent angle, it's great to have small class sizes. And so because our enrollment is like a bubble enrollment, where we can have class size at like 31 students per class, knowing that there will be some drop off, there's a possibility of increases in students. 31 is still within the CTU limits. So there's the idea that if we can keep 4 teachers at that grade level, but if the enrollment really comes down, then we can create 3 pods, but in a 4-way rotation, so that when like the language arts teacher does not have a group, that language arts teacher could provide intervention. When the math teacher doesn't have a group, the math teacher could provide intervention. So that they would they would only teach one content area to either 4 classes or 3 classes with 1 intervention. So there's some flexibility in what that model looks like, but the idea would be that there would still be 4 6th grade teachers, general ed teachers. It's just how many classes are actually formed. And so if we end up where the enrollment is too large, then we would just have 4 homerooms and no extra ability for intervention. And then we would be able to maintain 1 of the bilingual school assistants. And then we needed to allocate money towards substitutes, recess coaches, part-time staff, extended day, print services. There was a very small amount that went towards the supplies because that was just like the remaining amount. And so the vast majority of the $418,000 in needs-based funding went towards staff positions, with only about $107,000 going to non-teaching, but towards like these buckets to operate the school, and then us needing to anchor a lot in our internal accounts for any for the remaining funds for coaches to support recess and lunch, and then for any purchases that need to be made. And so, like, with that proposed allocation of the remaining funds, we then have what would be cut are 4 school assistants. I emailed the wrong number. I put 5. It's really 4 school assistants, 1 school SECA, not 2, and 4 CPS SECAs, which are special ed classroom assistants, and then 1 special ed teacher per CPS allocation, with the caveat that the district is rerunning special ed numbers around May 3rd, and they may be reinstating a lot of those positions once they rerun their numbers. And then I have finalized teacher schedules, but those are continuing to change because more and more IEPs are written between now and end of the year. And I'm working on finalizing SECA schedules. So it's likely that we will receive, it's very likely that we will receive the 1 special ed teacher back plus possibly an additional. And it is very likely that we will receive the 4 CPS SECAs back plus possibly additional. So then, like, if those things all get reinstated, what we're really looking at are the school assistant, the 4 school assistants, and the 1 school SECA. And so, like, those would be the cuts if all of the special ed allocations are reinstated.
Lori, quick question.
Uh-huh.
Are all the school assistants bilingual assistants?
No, we have some school assistants that are not bilingual. So it's the way that the positions are coded. So when we had opened this year, we had opened bilingual school assistant positions, but in last year's budget, we opened school assistant positions where you didn't have to be bilingual. You could be, but you didn't have to be.
And so what sort of responsibilities does a school assistant have if they're not a bilingual school assistant?
It's similar. They're still working with children. They're still covering preps for teachers, like in pre-K, they're covering recess periods. But intervention is where we had school assistants like supporting this year. So we had a lot of like extra adults working on interventions. So I guess that would be a good place to pause, because then what I have in like the second part of it are like current funds in the school's budget that my recommendation would be like this is what still remains that can be allocated, and then also what we have in internal accounts right now that I want to transfer over for school year 25. So like we have 45,000 and a little under 45,000 in leasing agreement. That would go towards the part-time bucket for lunch and recess coaches. We currently have $37,792 in student fees that we would want to move over for subscriptions, instructional materials, supplies. We receive money from the Best Foundation to support substitutes, so that money would be moved over. And then we have like a little bit of money in general funds that would go towards materials and supplies, and then before and after care, that there's still a small amount, or about 10,000 that remains there. And then remaining budget transfers that are in budget line. So this is where the cost of positions consistently shifts, like over the course of the year. And when we had to open the bilingual school assistants, they were opened, and then because they're open middle of the year, it like takes that money, but then it drops back what has not been used. And so we still have a good amount from that. And then I also am recommending that, because we're not trying to staff Mr. Jackson's position right now, that we close that, we'd receive about $15,000 back on that position that we could then use to purchase things for this school year. So I guess I'll stop at that and then see what questions y'all have.
I hate asking questions based on something I heard, but I heard from a friend in another school that they were told that you cannot appeal. Have you heard that?
No, that's not, no.
That doesn't
So
seem correct to me based
so
on
you
every
can't-
conversation we've had about
you can't appeal your budget unless there is like, you are really unable to meet the general education needs of students. And then you have to work with your network chief, and then they say, okay, like, if with the current allocation, this grade level only has one teacher, but there's 50 students. So then you work with your network chief, who then appeals to the district. So principals cannot appeal, but we can work with our network chief, who the network chief can then appeal.
But there is an appeal process.
There is a process. We didn't qualify for an appeal based on our budget, but I know one of the principals that I'm mentoring was eligible to appeal because she was unable to meet the general ed needs of her students.
So general ed needs.
General ed, special ed is separate. So special ed appeals are gonna open around May 3rd.
Okay. That
And that
was the
principals
main
will
thing I
appeal.
had in my mind when I asked that question. I should have said that. So that's a different set of appeal.
Yeah, principals can always appeal for special ed. It's just that they wanted, I don't know the reason, but they wanted us to focus on our core budget. They're still working on special ed, and then they're going to rerun numbers and reallocate. I think some of it could do that there's a new head of Office of Diverse Learning and Support, so I'm wondering if it just gives him more time to, I don't know the rationale.
With the, on the front page where it's like school assistant 22, 8, 4, and 4, what is this breakdown?
Because there were different buckets, like it was like keep school assistant 1, school assistant 2, school assistant 3, school assistant 4. Some people picked all 4 school assistants
Oh,
in their allocation of the 200 and something thousand.
okay.
The money that's in the internal accounts that that we would transfer, the assumption is that we would somehow recoup that money based on the the lease agreements and
Yeah, that's
all the money
always,
that's going to come through, right?
that's always
That's gonna be
replenished, like
replaced.
the leasing agreements, we always get more money from leasing because as long as we maintain Apollo and YMCA and like these fee-based programs. And then the student fees, like we've generally established a student fee, it's $50 a student. Currently, and then I think 100 or 150 per family. Not a lot of families pay it, nor do we like really push it really hard. Like it's more of a soft encouragement. And so that's where that money is coming from.
Then the budget transfers, I see you have separate lines for the, no, I see the accounts are different. I missed a number. And so why are there different accounts like that?
So the last set of numbers are your grants.
Got it.
And so you would have, so like the first one, the 51330, that's a benefits line coming from the 575 grant. Whereas the second line is a benefits line coming from a 576 grant. And so that's been like local funds versus state funds. And then the 51300 is like regular position on the 575 grant or the 576 grant. And then the 51350, I don't remember what that one is.
But it's just different accounts.
Yes.
At first, I missed that there was a missing, it's different.
Yeah.
It's just-
I have a clarifying question. So what is dependent on the CTE CPS negotiation? Is it so you mentioned this, like the second case manager?
That's basically, well,
Just that
at this point, based on our budget conversation, I don't know what else is in negotiation that may impact budget, but I know that for sure is in negotiation.
And then SPED based on the May 3rd? Like, because we don't have all the information for SPED?
No, we've got a lot of IEPs and meetings that are happening now until the end of the year. And special ed is constantly changing, which is why like sometimes middle of the year, I'll even say I put in an appeal for another special ed teacher or another special ed classroom assistant. It's a constant changing process. And so like when I did special ed teacher schedules, based on the current numbers for next year, we actually had 1.5 schedules that were open. And so if the district pulled those minutes, they would easily say, well, yes, based on like this moment in time for next year, you can do that, which we could. But once these IEPs are written over the next couple of months, then that changes. So that's where I have to constantly revise them to get like a current state reality.
Can I piggyback off that, Keith, or do you have another question?
No.
I've been trying to wrap my head around special education, and I sent you a couple questions. I've had conversations with friends who are on other LSCs. And one question that I keep coming back to is, like, in that moment in time, whatever it was on which you got this budget pertaining to special education, do our needs in that moment in time as a school, in terms of serving our special education students, exceed what they gave us? It sounds like.
From teacher, no, because we have graduating 8th graders. We don't know who's coming into kindergarten. And so really I'm looking at current kindergarten through 7th grade. And so I was able to create teacher schedules for those students and have 1.5 schedules like not filled.
So then why a possible projected loss of SECAs?
Because of their formula, when they're doing that, we have like SECAs in 8th grade that will be kids in 8th grade with minutes that are graduating, and then we don't know what those incoming kindergarten students are. So that's where now that I've got the special ed teacher schedules completed, I'm now working on SECA schedules to see is that real. I don't know today if the loss of 4 makes sense based on today. I think that we will get those positions back.
And I've got a question actually on because you said the interventionist will also serve as the IB coordinator.
So they're technically an MYP IB coordinator.
Okay.
A person who is in an intervention role will operate as an MYP IB coordinator.
Okay, and that's how we're kind of getting around that. Because wasn't that since we already have Mr. Lee, right? Is that?
Yeah,
I
so
remember
the district
meeting-
is telling us that we have to have an MYP.
An actual, it has to be assigned. So we'll use that position also as an intervention.
So the district does not want us to do that.
Yeah. Okay. So
The
I guess,
position will be coded, sorry to
Yes,
interrupt, but I'm
yeah.
just trying to understand the position the line item was like, middle years coordinator, middle years IB coordinator.
Correct.
Okay.
okay. I guess my concern is that like it will be used as intervention too.
The district is telling us we cannot do that.
Okay.
Any other questions? Comments? Yeah.
So for the internal account transfers, that table starting with the 44,000. So these amounts aren't also in that non-teaching allocation. They're getting added to that 92,000, for example.
You're saying, because in the budget I have that like 92,000 is going towards substitutes, recess, coaches, part-time staff, and extended day. That is there, and we need an additional 44,000.
And so the 44,000 we have in the leasing agreement, and we're just transferring it over
Correct.
into that bucket. So we're
Correct.
adding 92,000 to the 44,000.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, we spend even a little bit more than that every year, but I want to see, like, that's going to be a bucket that I'm going to have to monitor next year to see, are we like okay, or do we need to increase it?
Okay. So with these transfers, are we okay with supplies and print services? And
Yeah.
substitutes?
Yeah, print services is already, like, that I can't, like, they just automatically remove it from the budget.
Oh, okay.
So it's included in our total amount, but like, I can't move that money, so it's like locked in there unless we cancel and we don't have printing.
Okay.
The question was what? You had said something.
Supplies.
Supplies. Yes, so we're fine because we've got a good amount in this year's budget still that we are able to use right now.
Okay.
31, 45, 55. We've got like 70,000 remaining in this year's budget that we can use,
Okay.
in addition to the 53,000, 46,000 in internal accounts.
Okay, so on the non-teaching allocation, it's kind of that bullet, substitutes, recess, coaches, part-time staff, extended day pay that you said you have to keep an eye on and see if that's
Correct.
enough. Okay.
Correct.
And then for the position cuts table, how much, so we had 6 school assistants, and we're cutting 4 and keeping 2, it looks like, right? So how much is for school assistants?
It's about a little over 50,000 with benefits.
Per person? Okay.
It's like about 300 something thousand, I think, in cuts. It might be 250, 200, like 260,000-ish.
And then.
But the hard part is that we had opened some of those positions middle of the year. So we had opened the 2 bilingual school assistants in January? So it would cost us that much to keep them next year, but we only got like half of the year with them this year.
And then for the 1 school SICA position, how much is that?
That one is probably closer to 60,000.
Plus benefits.
So in terms of like numbers, is that kind of what our cut looks like, assuming we get back the 4 CPS SICAs and the 1 special ed teacher, it's 260,000 plus 60,000?
It would
320,000.
be 100 plus. $250, is that what you, 260, is that what you had?
With 4 assistants, and then
You're saying
another
260.
60,000 for the.
No, because you can't really count, like, you can't, like, we have to take 2 of those assistants and really, it's really looking at 3 school assistants.
Okay.
Because 2 of them were half of
Half the
the
year.
year. So it's like 3 school assistants based on what we would have allocated this year, which is about 150 plus about 60. 150 plus 60, so 210. It might be, no, 4,
Yeah.
3, yeah, 210. So it'd be like 3 plus,
That's what it would take, it would cost if we were to try and get those positions.
Well,
filled.
if we wanted to actually maintain those, then it would cost the 310, because then we would need that 4th, like, full year amount. Because 2 of the positions, we had only half the year. So if we wanted it full year, then it would be 310-ish. But the other thing to think about is that we're also pulling from internal accounts, so then you're looking at 310 plus the amount that we're pulling for the 45,000 in internal accounts for the part-time staff. So that's like what, 355 is like about what the cut is.
And there aren't any core roles that we're adding, because we had assistant principals and we had kind of all those core roles that now everybody is allocated. So we're not adding anything outside of this, okay. That's helpful, thank you.
And that's without special ed.
Yeah, okay.
What is considered core in terms of intervention? 1?
No, 0. They're not giving us any interventions.
Okay, that's not considered core.
I was curious with, so on the initial organizational structure, it was, they were giving us 8 special teachers, and it looks like we're going to keep all 9. But we had some shifting with the Spanish for the younger years. Is that role, like, will we be able to fill that? I think that's my,
Which Spanish? What?
isn't the PYP Spanish not filled? Or-
Yes, but we have a candidate identified.
Oh, we do, okay.
Yeah. So like all of our specials classes, like 2 Spanish, 2 PE, 2 art.
Yeah.
All of those would maintain for
Yeah.
next year.
Okay.
Holistic teachers are our specials teachers, so the art, PE, Spanish, dance, music, tech, those are our specials teachers. And so in the past, we've paid for those positions using school funds because we were under the per pupil student-based budgeting model. And now the district is allocating 1 holistic teacher for every, so like however many, I can't remember now, the general ed classrooms. And so we qualified for 7.4 holistic teachers, and so they rounded those numbers up to 8. So they allocated 8, but, which would be enough to cover all preps. But because of our MYP and design being needed, we need like an extra half position to cover that. And we also need somebody to support tech. And so that's where that 9th position is, could be any one of those specials, but like we need 9. I guess we could eliminate a special, like we could eliminate in art, we could eliminate dance, we could eliminate music. We cannot eliminate Spanish because of the IB. So like we could choose to keep 8 specials and still meet teacher preps and still be in compliance with IB. But based on like feedback from the community, that was the 2nd requested position. No, I did. I had 2 assistant principals last year, and next year I will still have 2 assistant principals. So the difference is that the district is now ensuring that all schools have at least 1 assistant principals, one of those positions. At Pierce, for the last 7.5 years, I've had the assistant principal serving as the MYP coordinator. That's the difference, and the district is telling us that we have to have an MIP coordinator separate from an administrator.
So we could potentially, I mean, we would have been able to use those monies to plug somewhere else.
Correct.
But instead, we have to do something that is not, I guess I'm gonna go out on a limb, it's not necessary based on our current experience.
Correct. And based on our IB program being a demonstration site.
And we have no recourse.
I have no recourse. I've pleaded my case like 1,000 times over the last year to everyone and anyone.
So the plan, sorry, let me know if it's an inappropriate question, but the plan is for Mr. Lee to stay as assistant principal.
Yeah, he would still maintain assistant principal. He's still gonna be heavily supporting the MIP program.
Okay.
And also, just to clarify, we're being told that we need to create a position, but not really been being given
No, they
resources.
allocated us a
We
position.
did.
Like, that is part of the, like, that is an allocated position that I have no
Right.
management,
That's
like, I don't have the ability to change it.
We
I can't
have to use-
liquidate
We
it.
have to use that money for that position.
I've got a question about the sixth grade classroom. Do we have numbers on IEP 504 numbers? for
They're
them?
low compared to the school.
Okay.
But even like, we would be okay to put kids into classrooms also.
Yeah.
Our current fifth going to sixth is just smaller, but part of that is because of the overall number of kids at the grade level.
Right. But as far as like ratio,
We would still have to maintain 30% ratio of general ed to students with IEPs, which we can do based on the way I created the schedules.
okay.
I think the overall premise of this is that we started with, or CPS is saying that they're starting with $391 million deficit. Part of that is, well, next year, we're going to lose federal funding due to COVID relief, which was $300 million. So really, without those funds, would be $600 million in the hole.
Which is what I read the projection is for the following year. In one of the Chalkbeat or WBEZ articles. I think it looked like it was gonna double
Right?
in 25.
It will, because we're losing
Right.
money that, and so I know that we're here to talk about next year's budget, but I'm already starting to worry about the year after that
Yeah,
and what that's going to mean.
yeah. So one of the things that I think really needs to be rethought of is like the state, because I've been trying to understand why is it that we're using 40% of students in the school qualifying for free and reduced meals? Why have like we landed on a percentage versus just using like a per pupil at the state level? And so I think that's the part that really needs to shift is state policy to change so that it's any school will receive per pupil funding for however many students they have that qualify for free or reduced lunch instead of a 40%, which for a small school is a handful of kids. For a large school, it's for us significant number of students, like 380 something is what I had calculated. And so we're not getting an intervention teacher, but yet we have a total number of kids that's larger than a lot of schools in the city of Chicago. So that, I think that's like the state policy part of this from a Title I perspective. But then I don't know if the state is then gonna, I don't know what the federal, like, it could be like linking back to federal then. I haven't done like enough research, but I was starting at the state.
Ms. Amy, so the intervention one is like the first position for intervention, the intervention two is just the second?
Correct.
Okay.
But then there's like a lot of caveats
Yeah.
here. So like, is the sixth grade at 4 genuine rotations or 3? Because then that could potentially be another like 4 hours of teacher intervention. What does the MIP coordinator's schedule end up looking like while they're not supposed to work directly with students? Is there any opportunity to support in the MYP? I don't know. There's like some possibilities with that.
You had asked about, Lindsay had asked about the IEPs and the 504 as it pertained to fifth grade. I think we had made some strides in the past year to get a second case manager. And we had to, I know you had to kind of do some moving around to try and get us to that level. And now we're losing that position effectively, or can we
No,
possibly?
we're reallocating.
We're going to have.
I mean, my proposal is to maintain 2 case managers.
I think there's too many unknowns with all of the allocation of special education at this point.
Yes,
Because we still have to wait until,
the appeals.
yeah.
It's hard to vote knowing, not knowing what's for sure going to be allocated. Because it, you can go based off feedback, but there's just a mix of unknowns. Especially when we know that the 4 school assistants, as you said, like there were a lot of extra bodies there, like working in intervention ways in the classroom. And yeah.
Okay. We had allocated 15 minutes, and I think we feel that. Any other questions, any comments? I think the general sentiment here is, I don't know, it's a mix of what, frustration and just sort of stoic reaction, right? There's a lot of, like was pointed out, there's a lot we don't know, but is there any way, I mean, that's just more a discussion item, because it seems like this is shared late and we have to vote on it early. Has there ever been a situation where we had more time to understand the true consequences or ramifications of the vote? And are we doing the right thing or the best thing that we know based on the information that we have at the time? I'm trying to, we're being asked to vote on something, and there are many items that are not necessarily
So
finalized.
the special ed, I guess the special ed part of this though, like, that's like, we can't vote on that anyway, because those are like positions that were like determined by the district. So really what we're deciding on is like based on the feedback from families and based on the proposal. Like I've tried to create a proposal that like meets like all of these pieces. So like we still maintain intervention, it's not the number of intervention. We still maintain specials, we still maintain like the possibility of 4 6th grade classrooms or 4 classrooms, but with like an extra intervention, and that's gonna be an enrollment decision. Like we still maintain the 2 special ed case managers just because of the case load. The school assistants, like we still will have 2 school assistants. We'll still have somebody that's supporting like the work of restorative practices. And we like have like the tech support. So like all of these pieces are still addressed. It's just not to the level that they were this school year.
Makes sense. In terms of building lease approval, those are the ones that we know for sure will be coming back. Are there others that?
There will likely be others, yeah.
And then as far as the student fees are concerned, I know you said that it was It wasn't compulsory. But now we're
Yeah.
increasing it.
Yeah, so one thought is that we could increase, so like where do we seek additional revenue is from asking families that maybe can contribute more to contribute more. And then those that can't, don't, like, it's not something where we like force
Right.
the hand, but to just say to families, like, given the current state of our budget, instead of paying $50 for each student, can you pay $150? So it's sort of like in another way of like generating additional dollars.
Regarding the student fees, is that 37,792 roughly what you see every year? Does that fluctuate very much?
It does change. I think that sometimes it's been like closer to 20. I can't remember if the 37,000 is all from this year or if any remained from last year. That's what I'm not, I can't remember if we had moved all of it last year over or if we kept some. No, when Friends of Pierce fundraises, there will be a specific thing that money is raised for when it's given to the school. So it might be for arts partnerships. And so then like $50,000 is then entered into internal accounts into an arts partnership line, and then that money goes directly towards the arts partnership. Some of it might be raised to go, in the past, it was like towards water fountains. And so then does that money come directly to the school, or does Friends of Pierce just purchase from like their fund? So like every fundraiser that we approve, there's a purpose for how those funds will be used. There hasn't been like a general fundraiser from FOP.
I was wondering, Principal Lee, if you could speak to the bilingual need in the school and the new arrivals and the impact and kind of what you've been seeing and what you anticipate the school will need next year.
There's a lot of like movement among students that are in the bilingual program. We have some students that enter and stay for years, and then we're seeing kids coming in and going throughout the year. So it really depends on individual family conditions. Students have said how much they've appreciated working with the bilingual school assistants and just feeling like a little bit more connected to the school. Because all of our teachers do not speak Spanish, it's helped bridge that gap between teacher and student, but then it's also supported individual students in their language acquisition of English. So teaching ESL in small groups. So there's been huge impact on our students that are needing like that additional support.
And can you share how many students are currently?
I don't have that off, I don't know like off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Our numbers were really low for that. That was included on slide 12. It was 4.6% of eligible students are not enrolled. We've worked hard to try and get students enrolled. And so we were in like we were in the lowest tier for that. And so because the opportunity index is what our funding model is based off of, we are like so far from entering the next tier.
That we like
Do you,
8th or 9th or something.
And our total score was 20, and I think to get, what was the next level? Like, we're pretty far from the next level.
Did the Medicaid, what do they call it, unrolling influence that this year at all? You know how a lot of people got knocked off the rolls?
Very minimally appears, very minimally. No, I mean, we could engage in other fundraising initiatives if the school or the LSC wanted to take that on. That is a possibility.
I appreciate you trying to think outside the box, Like I think having observed CPS budgets, generally speaking, over the last, how long has my kid been in CPS? Pre-K plus 9 years. So, you know, maybe like 12 to 15 years. This is a recurring problem in CPS and in the state of Illinois. The state of Illinois is one of the one of the worst states in terms of funding public education in the country. And so I think, you know, there's this temptation to think about what are the quick Band-Aids, but they're Band-Aids. You know, fundraising is a Band-Aid, whereas we have so much collective power among LSCs across the city that what I would like to see, and this is the idealist in me speaking, but I think it's also something we should consider at this juncture, we being all LSCs, what can we do at the state level? Because the state's not meeting its obligation. And we're just kicking the can down the road, in my humble opinion, when we keep relying on fundraising, which exacerbates inequities across the city. That's my 2 cents.
I think, well, thanks again, everyone. I think we can move on to the next item on the agenda, which is public participation. We have a sign-up sheet, but folks, I mean, feel free to chime in here. Guys, it's only for recording purposes, yeah, so we just have that.
No problem. That's fine.
Okay. First of all, thanks to everybody for sharing. It's very, very eye-opening. I've never been to anything like this. So this was just touched on, but I actually wanted to come here because I was very curious about the allocation for Mr. Jackson's role. And I know it was just touched on, but I was just wondering, I guess I would want to stress that I personally think that's an extremely important role in the school. And I think everybody here would agree that's been a major loss to the school. And although the position's being closed, like, is that just temporary, or is that
Yes, closed from now till the end of the year, but then we will have an RP coach for next school year.
Gotcha. Okay, that's,
I think
okay,
the
I guess
district
that was
prioritized
my main
that
question.
position for everybody, right?
The
Yeah,
RP coach,
Yeah.
RP coach was in schools that had high opportunity, and there were criteria for which schools
Oh, okay.
received an RP coach. We did not receive an RP coach allocation.
Okay.
But based on the feedback, we need one. When the school year starts, in the budget proposal, there's room for that.
Even though like a meeting like this is always like budget focused and it's all business, in what arena do we ever talk about like the school culture and like the emotional consequences of all these decisions? Is that something that's ever covered in these meetings?
In this
Not
meeting-
trying to get too deep, I'm just curious.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I feel like what you're offering is connected to the CIWP, because that's connected to everything that we do at the school. So I would think that what you're concerned about is most definitely something that we're always talking about. Maybe not explicitly, but yeah.
Yeah, when we create our school improvement plan, and there were like stakeholder engagement groups and like surveys that were sent out, that's where like looking at like the data, information we've received through various sources, where do we then like prioritize our school improvement efforts? And so that's where we came up with our school improvement plan. And so like engagement, parent-student voice, it like was like a priority area for us.
And that always comes through surveys, or is that comes through this?
No, it's talked about in the LSC meetings, because
Okay.
the LSC has to approve the school improvement plan.
Got it. Oh,
And the feedback, so during those sessions, feedback is actually gathered from those folks that are at the forefront of those. So the research practice coach made a lot of comments or was heavily involved in the discussions on how setting up the priorities in the CIWP affect, the overall performance, but also, the school itself in general, right? So that was part of the conversation.
Can we break it down even a little bit more of like, because I understand too that there's a lot of acronyms too. And so CIWP, what does that stand for?
Continuous improvement work plan.
It's a 2-year strategic, or 3-year now, strategic plan that every CPS school has to have.
It's sort of like,
And so that's something that was just talked about within the last year, in which parents and community members can participate and voice as that's being decided upon, and then like the LSC is voting on it. But just so it's a little bit less opaque, right? That is something that is announced and is open to everyone to be a part of. And like they're saying, that's sort of the mission statement that is it's a 2-year, 3-year? 3-year of like, here's what we want to focus on, and here's metrics of how we are going to be judging whether we're succeeding in that and like adjusting as it goes. And then there are CIWP meetings throughout that 3-year period. How frequent are those?
I was just gonna add, it's sort of like the school's North Star, like the long-term vision. What are the needs and how are we gonna measure those? And then how are we gonna monitor them?
okay.
Principal Amy, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that Principal Amy's principal report is aligned to that CIWP. So when she talks through that at every regular
Yeah,
LSC meeting, she hits on, not everything, because that would take a long time, but whatever's bubbling up underneath certain pieces of that plan.
And I may ask one more question? This had to do with fundraising, so I liked what this person asked us about, like opening the door to other fundraisers. But like, and I don't know if this the gala that's coming up, like I found it very interesting that ticket prices were so high that it was almost excluding. And we're a very mixed school in terms of income and everything. And I was just wondering why it was that way. And I guess this isn't who makes the, you all aren't who make the decisions on that, but for future fundraisers, I think that setting the bar so high on something like that could have been counterproductive. I mean, because if every dollar counts and it's about budget, I almost wonder if there was a fundraiser that could kind of follow that, or if, I guess that's already done. But maybe there's something that can be in the future that can be more inclusive so that parents do get involved, because I'm surprised that there's not a lot of parents here, and I don't know if that's a matter of being more transparent, but I know, like you said, you send out emails and everything's there. I just find it interesting, so maybe that's something, get it out to the masses a little bit more so that people care. I'm just surprised.
This is typical for our meetings in
Okay.
terms of audience.
Well, we would encourage you.
We have a lot of people tonight, I'll tell you that much.
It's about 60% more than.
Yes.
I would say too that like your voice is very important as far as I know, because we're all the parents here are parents just like you, and in the conversations we have, it's not always people know what this is and what they're, and so even you just participating and then sharing that, I think that would do a lot with using your word to culturally within the parents and how they communicate, because this is a bureaucratic system in which the ways that like Principal Zaney and us as a unit are able to communicate is very bureaucratic. It's in those emails that we all get a million emails. So I think if there is more word of mouth also, I think that would help, get other people to understand. Like, I think a lot of it is just, nobody understands how these things work, and why would I take 2 hours out of my evening to show up and,
Well, I didn't, so now I get it.
Yeah.
So,
So I think sharing that is really helpful.
It is. And I think what I'm hearing is you're wanting to get a pulse in the community. Like how does everybody feel about this? And it's very difficult in a situation like this because we're taking a feedback survey from just a small number of people that actually participated in it. But when you're talking the cultural, pulse as a school, how can we really get more feedback and create that transparency, so there's a lot of dialogue back and forth. And yes, I think the CIWP is such a great route to be able to filter, because it does have so much to do with budget. It's so closely tied hand in hand with it. But I think we there's definitely room to explore how we can be more creative and getting more input, back and forth between LSC, administration, community, parents, teachers, all that.
We're at time for
Thank
this
you.
section.
Thank you.
I guess I have a question for you. How did you?
We're
This
at
is-
time for this section.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm always interested in, having people in and are people aware that there's an LLC meeting even, right? This is a special meeting, right? But we have the monthly meetings and I just want to make sure that we're doing our job also, hey, are you coming tonight? Are you going to be, it's once a month, right? And so what else can we do to continue socializing this meeting, really? Thank you, very much, appreciate it. All right. All right, so now we're going to the next segment here, items needing the council approval.
I'm
So-
gonna timer for 20 minutes. We'll see. I appreciate the time for a thankless job.
Yeah. All right, first item, vote on the school year 25 budget. Well, before we do that, right, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I just wanted to just kind of do that for a second? Does this make sense what we're doing? Do you have any questions, anything?
Yeah, mostly.
Excellent. All right, so vote on the school year 25 budget.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed school year 25 budget.
I'll second.
Any discussion? I think we had that. All in favor? Easy ratings.
Yes.
Yeah.
All opposed? Thank you. The motion passes. The next item, maybe we should have, we didn't really talk about that one, right?
No, because I can talk about it as we get to it.
Okay, so the vote, so the next item is the CIWP school year 25 implementation. Plan. Is that what it is?
So the CIWP does not change, it's just, we have to update action steps on an annual basis because like the dates will shift. And so I emailed out, the CIWP to LSC members and referenced the tab that has SY 25 implementation plan. All of our goals stay the same. It's just like literally, like there were a few changes to like some of the action steps, but nothing significant to like completely shift our focus. So I don't know if anyone had questions on the revised, like the implementation plan for SY 25. We would do the same thing for SY 26 as well. They'll add in another tab, but we just copied everything over.
I think I attended this meeting as the equity committee. And not much to discuss, but just to say, Nicole, you asked earlier about multilingual learners, and we did actually make a modification to the CIWP to try to address those, so.
Last month we changed goals.
Yeah.
So like we revised goals at the last meeting. So those have been updated.
I missed that, okay.
Math, English.
Were there other questions on the SY 25 implementation plan? Okay, so then I'll make a motion to approve the school year 25 CIWP implementation plan.
I'll second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. The motion passes. The next item is a vote, internal accounts budget transfers.
So I will make a motion to approve the school year 24 internal account transfers as noted in the budget overview document.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
But I just want
Yep,
one
sorry.
quick comment. I don't know when it's appropriate to say this because I know we're not voting on an increase in student fees, but I just wanted to say it is on there.
We are,
Oh, we are?
yeah, last item.
Oh, never mind. I'll wait. I see. Sorry.
No problem. All in favor? See everyone. Opposed? Nobody? Thank you. The motion passes. The next item is vote on the budget transfers for school year 25.
So I'll make a motion those are for this year.
Got
Because
it.
those
Got
are
it. Yeah,
currently in our
okay.
account. So this would be money that's currently in our account that's not allocated. And so I will make a motion to approve the current school year 24 budget transfers for purchasing this school year, which include the 5 account transfers along with the closing of the ARPA position solely for the remainder of the next 6 weeks of school. But then knowing that we are reopening that position in the summer, July 1st.
Sorry, just had a question. So with those budget transfers, like the top 5 lines, does that mean if that money is not spent for instructional materials and supplies, does that roll over? No.
All this money is gone if we don't spend it.
Okay. And you think we'll spend it?
Oh.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay.
See the boxes out there?
Okay, good. All right, I trust that. Like, this is a lot of money, so.
Yeah, no, I went through all of like the budget requests and the money went fast.
Okay.
Big down. All right. Do you need
So
the motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the school year 24 budget transfers as noted in the budget overview.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. The motion passes. Next item, vote on the school year 25 leasing agreements.
Yes, and the reason that I'm requesting this now is because it impacts our ability to start advertising programs for next school year. And so we know that historically, the YMCA would like to hold programming. We're finding success in having 2 programs available to families because both programs are being heavily utilized. So maintaining YMCA and Apollo for school year 25. And then Apollo would like to offer a summer program that would start once school gets out. And then that would generate additional revenue for the school as well. And then we know of 3 phased programs that would like to continue next year. This list can still increase if we have other vendors that are interested in hosting on-site programming. So I will make a motion to approve all of the building lease approvals. And if the council wants us to go one by one, we could also do that, I guess. So maybe we should do that.
Yeah.
Let's do that. So I'll make a motion to approve the YMCA building lease approval.
Second.
They already sent out the
I know.
feelers for next year,
I know.
and they already said that they're already full, so, all in favor? Opposed? Thank you, the motion passes.
I'll make a motion to approve Apollo after-school program for school year 25.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed?
Is that summer program principal thing, the different one than the one you
Summer
already
school.
emailed about?
Yes,
Okay.
this will be a fee-based summer program, whereas the one we're running is a free program.
Do we know the hours, actually?
I think it's like 7:30
Oh,
till.
so it's not 1 to 5?
Oh, that sounds good.
For the Apollo one?
Uh-huh.
No, 7:30 a.m. till like 5:30 p.m.
Okay, so
So you
summer,
probably have flexibility with drop off.
The things you learn.
ding, 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 ding. Okay.
Where do we sign up?
So,
Yeah.
did we approve the school year one?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve Apollo's summer 2024 on-site program.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. The motion passes. Next item.
And then I'll make a motion to approve the fee-based program for young Rembrandts for school year 25.
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? Thank you. The motion passes.
And motion to approve American Eagle's use of school site for school year 25 programming.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. The motion passes.
And then motion to approve iCook's use of space for school year 25 programming.
Second.
Who was it? Which one?
iCook.
I cook, you cook, you cook.
Small I.
Oh,
Capital C,
iCook, okay.
okay, like iPad.
Yeah, that one was very successful.
What was it for? After school?
Yeah.
The feeders.
Right. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. The motion passes. Next item is a vote on school year 25 student fees. And I think
Yes.
Jacqueline, you had a question.
No, I was just gonna discuss if you were gonna say any questions or discussion.
Yeah,
I I'm gonna vote no on this. I'm mindful of what I've experienced with student fees at other schools in the past, particularly as schools are gentrifying. And thinking about, I don't know, the gentleman, he's not here anymore, who spoke about just that exclusivity, ethos that I think increasing the student fee can serve, even if it's not mandatory, to just kind of put that exclusive stake in the ground that, those fees can keep going up and up and up. So I'm thinking about it that way.
Do you know other schools, like what an average student fee is?
It's varied. Some aren't charging anything.
Okay.
Some are charging like $50. Some are charging like $300, if not more than that.
High schools are crazy.
Yeah, high school is ridiculous, the amount I paid in student fees.
Why is that left to the schools to decide what that?
Because
That's a great
public
question.
education in America,
That
That
is
is
a great question.
truly nuts, yeah.
public education in America.
And remind us our current student fee?
$50.
I always
And 100 per family.
So is your main concern like culturally that how it's discussed and then how people feel if they feel like they can or cannot contribute?
I feel like the school in a lot of ways is at an inflection point in terms of culture and community and how that sort of runs alongside what it means when a school gentrifies. I mean, Pierce is gentrified. If we consider, that Title I money, and the decrease in Hispanic students, when we look at the student demographic data over time, it's sort of like as I've studied it, at least the marker of gentrification when the white population starts to go up. And on the north side at least, the population of Black students hasn't been so large at schools like Pierce. That population of Hispanic students once exceeded the population of white students. And so just seeing those numbers over time, it feels like not the right thing to do.
So the way that we receive money, it has to be allocated for a purpose. And so, like, when we put that amount, like, because we're like collecting funds electronically in the school, like, we have to put like some amount in order for families to be able to pay that amount. And so, like, we could do like $30 a quarter, for instance, versus like, or $35 a quarter versus $150. Like, there is that option. If you're doing like a just general donation, that becomes really like hard from an accounting perspective to, like, for us to use like the current system in that way. I would have to look into that a little bit more, but like during our last audit, I know that like that was something that we had talked about, and it's difficult because then there's no way of tracking anything other than just like a lump sum. I don't know. I would have to look into that.
Right? Just an idea, but we can take it up, we can discuss another time, but
Well, I'm thinking if we're trying to shift to a more collective pursuit, my main example that comes to mind is like the fundraising thermometer, right, where you're like showing where it's at. So then it's less of like, I gave $50, did you give $50? But it's more just like, how close are we to the top of the amount that's needed? I don't totally understand what you're saying, if that's the main challenge, is the accounting part, if it is just a big bucket and you don't really know. But in a way, that's a little bit more of a collective pursuit if it's like, we're trying to reach this thing, and then if somebody's like, I have $10,000, I'll just give them $10,000.
I would need to figure out like how that works from an accounting perspective. Just coming off of like an audit, like I would need to like think about that more and like what are like the possible ways that we could shift from it being like in a student's Aspen. Because then it seems like this would be a fundraiser by the school, which then requires like fundraising approval, which.
Where does this go? So it's shown within each student's like Aspen.
But then it goes into internal accounts into a line of student fees. And so then like, what's the line that it then is linked to? And
But
then you could, yeah. And I don't even know that like, I would need to look to see, can you even just do that with Aspen? They tried to get us away from doing that because that's how we were doing it before. And they've asked us not to do it that way.
What was the way?
It was just like when we were initially starting the ePay system, it was just people were just paying online and it wasn't going to a student's account. And then it was, you can't do it that way. You need to assign it to students' accounts. So that's why I just need to figure that out.
There can't be like a few options for the students.
I don't know.
Okay, it's like a system
There's like
question.
very technical parts of funds collections in the district.
I'm curious to know, did I hear somewhere, is it like 30% of fees are paid? Was that discussed?
It's about
Okay.
that amount.
And so, do you ever receive feedback from families or like students about the fee being?
I've not heard like complaints about the fee because we don't hound people for it.
Right.
But what I've heard is, oh, I've just forgotten. I wish that I would have like remembered.
Okay.
Because we're not hounding. Like we'll send gentle reminders, like I think once, sometimes twice a year, but that's it.
I know I've forgotten and I've never received like anything. And then it'll be like mid-year, I'm signing up for a field trip and it'll be like, oh, I haven't paid. But yeah, okay, because I think that's also important too, that, you know, if somebody is thinking, gosh, like this feels like a lot, I'd love to pay it, but I have an issue being able to, you know, having the ability to come forward and be able to say that, I think is important. But yeah.
But we don't even need to know that. Like we don't even know that
Yeah.
somebody can't.
Right.
Like that's not even needed at the school level.
Yeah.
It's actually gonna bring that up because on like the field trip permission slips, like it'll say like, if I have a financial need, like check this box. Does that have that on Aspen for the student fees?
No, it's just that they get removed at the end of the year if they're not paid. So like Lynn will go through and like whoever didn't pay just like takes them out. So it should not be reoccurring year to year.
So is there a way to like, I think my biggest concern is like going from like 50 to 150. Like, is there a way to maybe just change it to 100 versus like this big?
There's like, we could say we don't want to do school fee at all. Like that is a possibility. We could leave it at 50. This was just like a recommendation, but it can be whatever we want it to be. And we don't have to vote today either. Like we can like think about this, collect feedback from the community and then work on like a proposal at the meeting.
So the 150 was more or less like based on that 30% of students and what we would maybe need for these itemized.
Correct.
I like the idea that you just proposed of getting more community feedback before we vote on it.
Yeah.
How are we covering these items now?
So when we are like making these same ways, like when we just did that transfer from internal accounts to budget line, it was for these types of materials.
Okay. That's 20 minutes. How many more minutes do we want on this topic? Chair.
That was for all the items needing council approval?
Yeah.
We're on the last item.
5 minutes.
I think we're ready to go into voting unless people have additional questions. Or discuss if we want to kind of push that back for the next meeting.
It can be pushed back.
Yeah, actually, I have a question. Do you by chance know the percentage of families paying the student fee?
It's somewhere around 30%.
Adrian,
Yeah.
right? Do you ever hear students discussing the student fee? I know it's hard for you to represent the entire student body, but just anecdotally from your experience.
I mean, I personally don't. I don't think I've ever heard them now. Because I would think that the parents would be the ones to discuss it.
Yeah.
Because me personally, I wouldn't tell my children about the student fees.
Right.
Because that might pressure them or something, or have negative feedback. So yeah, I have heard this.
Yeah, I don't think my child knows the student.
Because I didn't personally know until this meeting.
I think we have an agreement to postpone this, right?
Can I ask, how does the council want to seek feedback and like make a recommendation on what we do to move forward?
I think clarity for parents to understand, like, why is there a student fee, what the student fee like goes towards, why as a school we're asking for one, why is it important that we're asking for one? And
Like pros and cons.
Yeah, maybe even be explicit as like, this is not a mandatory fee. I don't know.
Yeah. What, I guess, what the direct purpose of a possible hike in student fee would be for?
Yeah, so is this something, I guess my question more is this something that the council wants to like seek that feedback from the community?
We can.
I'll say, I don't know if, I'd love more feedback, I'm pro more feedback, but I also think I'm just kind of not in favor of increasing the student fee, in general, for a lot of the reasons Kathleen described.
I don't think I would change my vote, but I want to give more people a chance to weigh in on it before we vote on it.
I think what we also need to keep in mind though is had we not had internal accounts this year, then we're looking at closing more positions that the district is not going to give us back. And so because our poverty rate is lower, like there is that sort of like real struggle that like we would be without X number of dollars. Like the
38,000.
38 from like this year plus last year, we had voted on student fees to also go towards the budget. And so like, so then you're looking at like a school assistant, for instance, or half of a teacher or part of a teacher. Like, so there's that real thing where they're gonna say, but you can still operate your school. So there is like that, like, we're in that position here.
I'm sorry, I don't think I'm following the relationship between positions and I see lunch and recess coaches, but I need to see a flow chart of what you just said, I'm
So
sorry.
what I'm saying is that we're voting to move about $38,000 that are currently in student fees. There were like more funds in student fees like last year that went towards like this year's costs. So like that amount of money exists. And if we did not have that, then that's $38,000 of like materials that we cannot purchase, but then have to come from leasing agreement, general funds, school budget, that then takes away our ability to then open, using school funds, another position.
So it's like pulling from another line item in order to cover it.
So we would have to say like that 38,000 would have to come from our budget. And then in our budget, remove 38,000, which is essentially gonna be the majority of the cost of a school assistant, for instance.
But that's if we didn't have a school fee in the future.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
Okay, right on. Thank you.
And because we're really exhausting internal accounts, like really exhausting it, like we've like slowly started to exhaust it over the last couple of years, we're not gonna have as much in it next school year.
Yeah.
And so then, like, the impact that it doesn't just have on this coming school year, but then the school year after it.
But to be clear, our vote is not whether to eliminate the student fee, it's whether to increase it.
Right, that's correct, and what I'm saying is that if we don't increase it, then we're looking at, for the following year, potentially using more.
What I'd be interested in learning more is about like the options with the technology. Like, can we have, you know, choices for families to choose to donate more or less, you know? Or is that not an option at all? And then kind of what are other schools doing that are in kind of
What do you
similar?
mean for the technology?
In Aspen,
Yeah, in Aspen,
Oh.
yeah.
Say that again?
Like,
we
what
can
if there was
only
an
pay
option to-
our,
Like, what if $50 was an
can we
option?
pay more?
50
Well,
or
that's why I'm saying, like, right, so it's very hard, like, in Aspen to like, put like, just like, you can't put just a general, we've tried that with the field trips, to just put like an open line, we can't do that. We have to have, like, individual line items, and so that's where, like, we could
Could it
say
be
like,
50 or 500 or?
yeah, we could say like $35 a quarter goes into every student's Aspen, so that you could pay $35, you could pay $140. Like, we could chunk it, you could pay one or none, you could pay four, like, we could do that, have like multiple lines.
I don't know.
Yeah, sounds- yeah,
I'm
sounds-
so auditorily distracted.
But could it be more than one option, you know? Like,
I mean,
families can
that's a
choose
good question.
$50 or 200 or 500 or 1,000.
Yeah,
Like a
yeah, you
sliding
could do
scale.
that. You could do
Okay.
that, but then that would be in every student's account, so every family member would go in and see that.
Yeah, so that's what I would be in favor of something like that, where families could still, we could
Because
keep
it
it
could
at
still
six.
be zero.
You can keep it at 50.
So I guess this is where I think it would be helpful if like members of the council could like even get together and like explore this and say, like, we're thinking like these could be possible options.
Mhm.
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
And then like which ones make sense based on like the district like platform that we're using.
Right,
Like, I think that would be really helpful.
okay.
And I think, I like that idea too, because, you know, talking about inclusivity, I think, you know, if people have an option that works for them, you know, whether it's $5 or 200, I think people want, despite American public education and its shortcomings, people want to be able to contribute.
Well,
And
like,
so it opens it up to do that. Sorry.
and like Lindsay said too, of like, oh, I just forgot, I would like to. So how do you communicate it to the people that are in that kind of boat where they're saying, I would be more than happy to, but I forgot, while also not shoving everyone else's face that this is something that's happening and like, you should really do it. Yeah, so maybe have,
Well, it enables
Having an
language
option.
around reminders too, that, you know, this is optional. or whatever you would want to say, but, and there are,
But you can
Various
also
lot
pay towards a fee in the system, so we could say that like everybody's gonna go in and see $100,000 price tag. And then you put, because that's like an unrealistic amount. that I
and it
would
could be
think-
pay what you want.
And then you just pay what you want towards that $100,000 so that you also avoid sort of,
But the line has to say something.
yeah, and then we just communicate that like, you're gonna go in and see that you owe Pierce School $100,000, but guess what? You can put whatever you want towards it. That you can pay partial amounts towards something.
And that's kind of like the giant thermometer.
For an individual,
Yeah.
And then, I mean, we could, like, if we, then that's also becoming very public with the amounts, like, do we want to get to that point where we're like constantly saying, like, this is the amount that we've collected in school fees? I mean, we could, but then does that shift culture also?
Right.
Definitely we should have.
I mean, the messaging is pretty important because even within the categories of like, oh my God, we could donate $5,000 or some families donating $5,000. That's on the drop down menu.
I mean,
That's
since
another
we're going
messaging
now,
thing that comes to mind
Yeah.
too, where you're like,
since we're talking about options, I know we'll have some more discussions. I mean, it is also possible that somebody clicks the wrong button. And then they come back and they say, oh, I added an extra zero here. I didn't mean to do that. Now you talk about technology taking care of that. What does that look like?
People base that in their bank accounts when they're making transfers, credit card.
I'd be curious if others, if any other schools like really, happy or excited about the way they handle student fees.
Yeah.
Wanna share.
That's an organization that we work with, that our teachers go to professional development on inclusive and equity and inclusion. And then they pay for, they'll cover the cost of substitutes. And so we still have that amount remaining for substitutes that they give us money for, that we want to just transfer over. So I guess that really didn't technically need a budget transfer because it's already earmarked for that, but
I think it's important to
to,
itemize it.
yeah. It's not, so for us to be able to collect a student fee, we can't use another platform. We have to use the district's platform of Aspen if we're collecting a school fee. Is more, how does Aspen operate, and like, how can we, like, what flexibility do we have with that particular system?
Yeah, you can go to your Aspen account.
Well, he wouldn't have one because he doesn't have a kid at
Oh,
school.
you
I can show you
can't.
mine.
You can't.
We can, but you can't, unfortunately.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
don't know what the account
You
is.
can pay my student.
Mom takes care of that's bad. All right, very good. Okay, so I think we have an agreement here to have more conversations around. Next item, public participation. Thank you for your patience. We do have another comment online too.
Oh,
Go
you know
ahead.
what? I do have an email break, but go ahead. Yeah, I almost forgot. No, you should go.
Just regarding the school fees, I think, when I heard the 30% number, which I heard like a few weeks ago, I was like really astounded, and then like some parent chat, when we were talking about it, one thing that we had discussed is like, it's like a major PR problem that people aren't paying their student fees, is that like as parents, we just don't know where it's going. And as like everyone in this room, I feel like we have a duty to like tell people like, this is where the student fees are going, they're really important, and make sure to like communicate that out and other platforms like on Fresh Peers or like just chatting with their friends, because getting that number up from 30%, because we know from the study that like more than 30% of our parents can pay that $50. And it's like if we had more, like if we had a 70% participation and paying that fee, then maybe you wouldn't need to increase it to $100 or $150. Like, I'm not opposed to increasing it, but I'm just saying, like, if you had more people participating, then this wouldn't necessarily be a problem. So like, I'm just pointing it out, like, if everybody in this room, like, went out and said, like, to their, like, 10, 15, 20 friends at the school, like, hey, this is what this fee is for, like, we should all be paying for it, and, like, beginning of the school year, going on parents and peers, or, like, saying, like, hey, don't forget to pay your school fees, this is what it's for, it's really important, and make sure to communicate that out to our friends. The second thing, which I only am bringing up because you guys are mentioning it, Aspen is like super complicated for a lot of people who are not like digital savvy, and I work with families who are refugees and they want to participate in like the school process a lot. Like, and seeing like a variety of fees on their account would be beyond confusing for them. And I'm just like putting it out there as like just a reminder that not everybody is like coming into it being like super digitally savvy or like US born or even having English as a first language. Just like a general like reminder when you're thinking about like options as far as Aspen goes.
What's the study you referenced?
What?
You mentioned a study in your first comment. We know from a study that 50%, I forget how you phrased it.
No, she said from like a couple weeks ago that 30% is the student fee, because I had shared that, I think, in the last LSC meeting, or at some point, like I shared that.
Oh, I thought you said something about there was a study showing more parents can afford.
Oh, from the way that our ranking is. The fact that all of our that our funding is lower because of our ranking. Like, the
opportunity.
Oh, okay. The opportunity index. Okay. Yeah, which is based on a bunch of factors.
I have one last comment on the student fees. So if 30% are paying the student fees now, then if raising it to, let's say, $150, then since it's also voluntarily, wouldn't the percentage drop drastically because they wouldn't want to pay $150 for something that's voluntarily?
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, and also, this is just a rough draft, I haven't thought of it much, but couldn't we lower the prices and make them mandatory for the families that have average or above average incomes?
Now, making it mandatory is difficult, but like strongly encouraging, it's sort of like, what's the message?
And do we have, and also, I would assume there's some kind of privacy consideration, right? So how public is that information about?
How do you target those families?
Right, to go out there.
We know you
and
make
do
this
that,
much,
so-
so.
What's that?
We know you make this much money, so.
Yeah,
we should
okay.
know.
Right. So there's a thing called, to your original point, there's something called arbitrage, right? So like, now you got 50, you say 30% are paying 50. If you move it to 150, is it really gonna be 30% again? It could be lower, but even if it's lower, is this still gonna match the original amount?
Sort of sounds like what you're proposing is a sliding scale.
Yeah.
Paid based on income.
I'm wondering from this comment, like if we could, as a school, have a goal of 100% participation, but it's pay what you can.
I mean, what if the sliding scale is more of like, if you fall within this income level, we suggest, like.
Or it could be like, the average donation is whatever,
So much about a person's income, and like you could make $500,000 a year and have 200 grand in student loan debt, and like you don't know what lives underneath that. I mean, this is not to like send love to the 1% or anything like that, but I just think that's a dicey proposition.
But like the average donation is, it's.
But I think I think that's what's helpful is like, if people, that's like a common thing that if you tell somebody, well, just do whatever you want, then they're like, I don't even know what to do. They just don't do it. But I think it can be helpful to say, this is, I mean, that's a common thing of like, it's like pricing strategy. If you say like, this option's $99, this bare bone one is $40, but you can get most of everything at 75, everybody goes for 75 because they have something to reference it for. So if you have some points of reference and saying like, this is an average amount, or if you say if you make between $0 and $30,000, you shouldn't pay. Like,
Would it be possible to get like 100 or to track participation? So if we were like, we want 100% participation, is it easy to track that?
Well, that's where we have to figure out how do we utilize the technology, because then it's what's the amount that we have to put an amount
Right.
in
So you-
people's accounts.
right.
So that's
So
where
they
like
can't-
that other issue comes in.
Yeah, so when they go into paying, there's only one option. It's $50.
Correct.
They don't have.
You could put
option.
towards the $50, but it's like, what's the amount that
Can
goes in there?
Can you put less than, you can put less, you're saying, can you put
Yeah.
more than 50 the
I
way
don't,
it is?
I don't think so.
I don't think so, because there was something last year with the field trip.
Yeah,
Okay,
no,
so
you
there's-
can't- you can't be more
So
than
there's no
$50.
floor, but there's a ceiling.
Maybe it would be helpful though if we had like a goal number, like we want $100,000 and we put that number out there. We give the information as to what that will be used for. And then
Yeah.
figure out how we want it.
Yeah, I do think it continues to boil down to technology and the access and.
Do you have a goal principle maybe in mind with this formula? Like how much would you expect to collect with this change, like total?
Just under 100,000.
Okay, so that's the idea, is to get to 100,000.
We have 1,200 students.
Well, we can't, no, because we can't take from pre-K. Like, we can't suggest a student free to pre-K.
Okay, so that's how many people, when you take them out, it's like 900?
We had 958.
Not including pre-K?
Right.
So 958 times $50 is 47,900. So if every student paid $50, it's $47,900
Right, but you're not taking into consideration the families.
that have multiple kids.
right.
Maybe we can get those exact numbers and then try and see look at it.
Which exact numbers?
So instead of doing 958 times 50, we need to do
Or
a
like
lower
100.
number times 50 and another lower number times 100. Right, because some of them are paying for families, or it doesn't matter. I guess it's twice. So if there are 3 students here, they owe 100. But it's not out of 150. Now you don't have 958 anymore. You have 957. Right? And so you have 957 that paying 100.
Right.
So those numbers keep going lower and lower the more kids you have. But me, for example, I'm not paying $8.
Right.
I'm paying 100.
100, right.
And so that 47.9.
I know, that's where that's gonna be like impossible for us to be able to figure out.
Yeah.
Because then I have to give you identifying information, which I can't do. And I don't even know who our students.
Or family, or you don't know the family. Okay, that's another thing, privacy, right? So.
Can we see who's interested? That's just, I was just gonna say, can we see who's interested in exploring this further and maybe
Sure.
having
Yeah,
a sub
totally.
meeting at some point with Ms. Amy,
Yeah,
letting us
yeah,
know about
but-
the technology
Yeah,
and.
yeah. So the next point, with the scenario where we increase it, we can say, so you get the increased amount, but then you have you incentivize folks to get to the 50 minimum or some way. Anyway. This is fun. I actually like that.
Sounds like you want to take this project.
Yeah, so we'll follow up. I mean, figure out what Lori's got on the calendar, and we'll definitely talk about that. There is an email. So now, because now we have we've been opening up conversation in the Pierce LSC.
That was 10 minutes. How many more minutes? do we
So
want?
I'm gonna read this, and then I think should be, I think another 5 minutes. 5 more. So I have a question that I wanted to present to the LSC. Something that could be discussed and or considered in the Pierce CIWP. I was talking with my kindergartner about school one day recently, and the kindergartner stated that they absolutely love to do centers, and it's one of the highlights of the day, besides seeing the teacher. But the student also mentioned that they are not doing them any longer. So the parent is wondering why. I later noticed a thread where parents were discussing this issue, the lack of play of self-directing learning, exploration, and opportunities in kindergarten. The fundamental question is, are kindergartners at Pierce allotted time for self-directed, play-based learning in their daily schedule? I know that at Pierce, this has been a part of kindergarten in the past, so if it's not currently allowed, why not? And why not now? There are many research articles connecting play-based learning and improve academic skills, and if test scores or academic minutes are concerned, I'm happy to provide links to to back this up. Thank you in advance. I know that the LSC meeting today is full and planning to attend in person to continue this discussion. So the question is about time, self-directed play in kindergarten, I guess.
Can we possibly add that to our agenda for May? Because there was a pretty robust
That's what I was gonna
discussion on
propose
parents
too.
and peers.
I was
With
gonna
the-
propose the same thing.
Yeah.
I've been hearing from a lot of parents about this specific issue.
And there were suggestions to talk to you about it, to, like some people were saying, talk to Principal Amy about this. But it seems like it's a pressing issue. I don't know a whole lot about what's happening, but there were a lot of comments.
I think there's a lot of misconception, and I'm curious where like the messaging is coming from. Play should be happening. It's part of the IB. Students should be learning through play. There is time for centers. Teachers should be utilizing centers. What do centers look like? I think is the question. So I think that's where I think some of this is coming from.
Did something shift at the district level though, around?
We asked teachers to teach science this year, and as soon as we asked teachers to explicitly teach science, it became, we can no longer play, which is not the case.
By no means can it not be interdisciplinary science embedded in other parts of the day. And you have to be separate.
The IB encourages transdisciplinary teaching. This year is a learning curve for our teachers because they're having to explicitly teach science. That has not been a huge push. There's been very minimal science instruction happening in the name of transdisciplinary, which is not accurate.
Okay.
And so we asked our teachers to implement the curriculum, see what happens, let's learn about the curriculum, the standards, and then how can we shift things so that it becomes more transdisciplinary. There's a lot of opportunity to create more intentional like connections so that it becomes more transdisciplinary in nature.
Is this kindergarten or kindergarten and others?
It's mainly coming up in kindergarten right now.
Yeah, I having a kindergartner, I'm hearing a lot from parents, and I think it'd be helpful for parents, teachers, administration, for us all to have like a very kind of like transparent conversation. So I don't know if it's agenda next meeting, but it does feel like different stories are being shared, and it feels like we all kind of like need to be on the same page of understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Because
confusion.
at one point earlier in the year, I heard centers were going away. I'm like, what are you talking about? I mean, I have an 8th grader, so I don't know what goes on in kindergarten, but.
I think that kind of goes back to what the comment was made earlier. It's nice to kind of hear those things, because then we can talk about it, right? It's really difficult for us. What we can do is kind of share these ideas, right? But there's a lot of times that I don't want the assumption to be made that we know the answers and that we can answer them, as the question comes in, right? Like this, I wanted to emphasize what Lori said before, if those are concerns, just like any other concern, they should be brought up like as often and as early as possible. So I'm glad we're talking about that. And I'm also glad, in a selfish point here, that you're saying there's a lot of confusion about this, because I do think that there probably is.
Can I ask that the emails to the LSC get forwarded around
I just did.
to everybody? Okay.
There was also one YouTube. Go ahead, Lee.
So it's the latter, and it's also conversations that we all have during our various interactions with parents or other folks in the community. We don't have something going out on a monthly basis out to the community to collect input or feedback about topics.
There was a time not so long ago, though, like that LSC members would be out at a coffee shop and invite everybody, whoever wanted to come connect with them about any issues that they wanted to talk about.
And I remember like on this particular issue, even like coffee with the principal, this was brought up like early on at the beginning of the year. And that's also another avenue.
One thing you just made me think about, just spitballing here, but Bell School a number of years ago had a monthly, maybe every other month thing called a parent forum. It was like 8:15 in the morning in their auditorium. Parents ran it. The principal came. Just spitball.
Yeah, so I think so about that. So we have, or Lori has that with the coffees. We also do on a regular basis now, and we started doing that at a location near the branch, a Friday coffee type gathering to try and do what you just mentioned, right? It's just kind of getting people in.
The LSC didn't.
No, it's not LSC based, right? It's law, but it used to be actually all the parent groups, including the LSC. Now FOPs and PSO, that is mainly FOP, are facilitating those get-togethers. So yeah, definitely more opportunities to do that.
I think that's kind of what Jeremy was also kind of touching on as well. It's just like, how can we get a pulse on like the culture of the school and like any issues other than just like attending an LSC meeting when it feels kind of intimidating. You've got this formal agenda. But I like that idea of like that Bell is doing like a parent forum.
I'll have to find out if they're still doing it. Yeah. But it was well attended too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we did that. So in the prior council, we did that, and we had it on a monthly basis. This is another one of those where the intention is there, but in reality, it didn't really translate into much participation. Right, so that there's always that, right? So there's always the opportunity to do more of those, but also the challenge of seeing poor, if any, attendance. So there's, I'm a strong advocate to making redundancies and making sure that people have ways to communicate, right? Like, so the last thing is to give the impression that that's not happening, but also being conscious of like the fact that in reality, when it really happens, right, attendance is not always there.
And like, just for your information, we have like 4 different parent groups that are really active: the Racial Equity Parent Group, PSO, FOP, and BAC. And they all have regular meetings that a lot of us attend those various group meetings too. So that's another engagement opportunity. And you're, as community member, you're welcome at, I believe, like the rep meetings, FOP,
Equity
FOP
Committee.
meetings. I don't know about that.
Yeah. Nope. Take it easy. Thank you. I think you said there was none.
Thanks, Blake.
There was just a comment that I can speak on to the record on the YouTube comments of a suggestion about the fees. It says, could there be 2 separate fees, like a $50 student fee and a $100 supplies fee? So that was one. Then actually there's another one right now. What was just suggested if LSC meetings are too formal, etc.? Sounds like a question about on YouTube.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
What was just suggested if LSC meetings are too formal, etc.?
Well, I think they're asking, like, with this being a formal setting, what are the other options?
So the Bell Parent Forum is maybe the answer to that question.
We call that Pierce Forum, I think, Parent Forum.
A Pierce Parent Forum.
Yeah, so we had.
That's less formal.
But what we currently have, though, is coffee with the principal.
Right.
Yeah, and all the parent groups.
And the parent groups that parents can hear.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to the next item, announcements, comments.
I think I sent this out. I don't know who I sent it to. Can't remember if I sent it to the whole council or not because I was kind of immersed, but I think just pay attention to Springfield, not just now, but always. There was this kind of somewhat historic vote in the House last week that overreaches into the authority of CPS by the state legislature, which is doesn't really happen much, and it was pertaining to selective enrollment schools, and, you know, it's gonna go to the Senate, I don't know when, it's gotta go to a committee first. I learned all these things about lawmaking last week, but it runs the risk of, making budgets even tighter in neighborhood schools. And I say that with a sort of a hesitation because so much is unknown about these budgets right now too. There hasn't been, you know, CPS has not put out to the media all the schools. Usually there's a list that you can access. We haven't done that. So I think just like I'm urging people to watch what the board does, the Board of Ed at CPS, but like watch up the chain to the state level at least if you can, because these bills can sneak up and affect schools adversely.
Thank you. Next item, checking on norms. I thought we had a great meeting. I enjoyed public participation.
The timekeeping.
I really hope we
Are you
get.
thinking about the float for next year?
What's that? Oh, yeah, that's an announcement. Please keep in mind that for the Lunar Year Parade and any other parades, we would love to have a float representing Pierce and possibly in collaboration with other schools. So
And
we
you're here for another
will
8
continue.
years. This is so awesome.
We will continue drum rolling that one.
You're gonna be my conduit over at Send. What's going on?
Yeah, we're gonna make a detour. Very good. With that, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next in about 10 days, 11, no, more than that, 20 days. Sorry.
Course and budgeting. Thank you, Principal Jamie. That was really hard.
Oh, in a short period of time.
Right.
I was like, geez, man.
I was trying to think of a metaphor.
I was like,